Now, the University of the Free State has released a book by Professor André Odendaal titled Dear Comrade President, Oliver Tambo and the Foundations of South Africa's Constitution. The book follows the making of the Constitution, which has been praised around the world, even though questions remain about how it materialized here at home. We speak on the issue with Professor Odendaal, who joins us via video link. Prof, thank you very much for your time this morning. I must admit, I have yet to get my hands on the copy. I am particularly interested in wanting to know why it was important that you actually captured this history.
Thank you very much, Dudu, for having me on. It's actually not the first launch of the book, but it was I was invited by the University of Free State to speak ahead of Human Rights Day. And basically it tries to, there's a lot of debate today about the Constitution. Is it an obstacle for change, or is it the platform for the transformation that we need in South Africa? There's unacceptable levels of socio-economic exclusion and marginalization, the poverty and unemployment, as well, of course, the misgovernance and the non-delivery that has made a mockery of liberation dreams. So we all realize that unless the majority of South Africans have a stake in the system in terms of socio-economic inclusion, constitutions are going to be nice sounding rather than have meaning for people. And what I do in Dear Comrade President is say, okay, there's all these debates. Where did it all start? And I think the very important point to start off is it was not the 2nd of February when F.W. de Klerk made his announcement that heralded the beginning of the constitution-making process. And I think that's where the importance of the book perhaps comes from, that it was actually 5 years earlier that an African liberation movement living in an African exile with its headquarters off a little sanitary lane in Lusaka between Cairo and Cha-Cha-Cha streets started saying South Africa is upside down now. The government, the apartheid government's tricameral parliament had collapsed. There was mass uprisings from October 1984. Botha tried to come out of the crisis with his Rubicon speech, and that failed. The economy was imploding. There were states of emergency, and at the height of that, insurrectionary climate, Oliver Tambo said, on his 8th January 1996 speech, he sent out the message, "Make apartheid ungovernable." But what very few people know is that on that same day, he set up a secret committee, which he said had no precedent in the history of the movement. And that was what he called the Constitution Committee. And he said that the balance of forces is changing in favor of the oppressed in South Africa. And therefore, the ANC needed to work out very precisely what kind of outline for a future South Africa it wanted. And out of that, in a process stretching over 2.25 years from January 1986, came the constitutional guidelines for a democratic South Africa. And very briefly, I can say by the 14th of January, there was already draft 1 called the skeleton. I can't go into details, but by October 1986, a 4th or 5th draft called the Foundations of Government. And at that NEC meeting on the 2nd of October 1986, basically the ANC NEC approved the future template for South African constitution. And that surprisingly was not a one-party state constitution that would depend on an armed victory with the ANC marching into Pretoria in armored vehicles, but a highly sophisticated response to white reform initiatives inside South Africa. And we can come back to that if we've got time. And at that NEC meeting in October '86, the NEC accepted that the future will be based on a multi-party democracy in South Africa, very insisting that it be based on individual freedoms of all South Africans in a united country. And the simple reason for that was all the reform initiatives, even outside of government, by establishment, business liberals and KwaZulu-Natal Indabas, that with any future...
Professor Odendaal, it's to do, unfortunately, I do beg your pardon, and I'm so sorry about that. Unfortunately, we are tied for time. I can make a commitment, though, that we will definitely, at your earliest convenience, book you to please speak about this very crucial and fascinating launch of this leg of the book. For now, we say thank you very much.